I cannot wait for that match. Oh, my goodness. We're here at the U.S. Open where Serena Williams is chasing Margaret Court's 24 Grand Slam singles titles, remaining one short. She plays today at 1:30.
I was just looking at that tagline. Looking at that tagline, and it said Queens.
Oh, you're like, I'm back home?
I grew up 15 minutes away from here.
And now you're here.
All this means.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah, it feels good, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
On that note, guys, Serena has been dominating her sport for 20 years. I mean, look, we're talking about Coco Gauff. She's 15. Serena's still doing it at 38 years old. Where does she rank amongst the most dominant athletes of all time?
She's not number one. I know there's there's a lot of goodwill around Serena, and there's some recency bias. But again, she doesn't even have the record in her own sport for singles. Although Margaret Court, Smith, whatever, given especially her kind of backward views socially, and it's based in her religious beliefs and everything that she's expressed, has kind of fallen out of favor, but she was extremely dominant. Serena is probably the greatest female tennis player of all time. Navratilova and Steffi Graf might have something to say about that, but I would say it's fair to say Serena's a little bit ahead of Graf, who's probably a little bit ahead of Navratilova.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so I get it. So she's the best ever who played her sport. Then the other question is, who plays her sport? So, is there incentive for the best female athletes to play tennis? The answer is yes, actually. So she plays a highly organized sport with a long history that has a lot of great athletes who play it, and she's the best who ever did it. So she has her place in the top 5 or 10 at most dominant athletes of all time. But Michael Jordan, to me, is clearly the greatest basketball player ever, and it is almost not an exaggeration to say everyone on earth who can play in the NBA plays in the NBA. If you're capable of playing in the NBA, it's almost 100% likelihood you actually play in it. So there's no more competitive league, and Jordan was the best who ever did it, to me, clearly. That puts him at number 1, and everyone else has to argue for number 2. Serena, if and when she gets the Grand Slam title, I mean, she's way behind in singles win, but okay, fine, whatever, it's different eras. She will start to make the argument with others in other sports. Tom Brady in football. You can look at Babe Ruth, or if you want to look at a more recent player, Barry Bonds before the juice, or maybe Mike Trout eventually in baseball. She will start to be in the mix in those arguments. She's already in the mix in those arguments, top 5, top 10.
She's top 5 to me. She's top 5 all time. I would have put her number 1. It always has been and probably always will be Michael Jordan for me. When it comes to Michael Jordan, I think about 6 championships. True. Obviously, Bill Russell had 11 and 13 years. We get all of that, different era. But I look at the level of competition. I look at things like the Jordan rules. I look at Jordan three-peating, retiring, 2 years later coming back, a year and a half later coming back, and ultimately 2 years later. So 3 peats again. Legitimate argument could have been made. They might have won 8 straight if he hadn't walked away from the game of basketball. Played in an NBA Finals 6 times, won all 6, was NBA Finals MVP all 6 times. And oh, by the way, never once did he allow a Game 7. And I look at Serena Williams, despite the greatness, the 23 Grand Slam titles, she's absolutely phenomenal. I think she's the greatest female tennis player ever.
She won one pregnant.
That's right, she won one pregnant.
Oh, my
crying out loud. She's done that. No man will ever claim that. The bottom line is this. I look at all of that. But obviously, tennis is a different sport, and you play so much of it. There are times within the same year where she may have looked vulnerable. So you might have won the Wimbledon, but didn't do the U.S. Open. You might have won the Australian Open, and then lose the French Open. You know, those kind of things. So it's back and forth, back and forth. Whereas with Jordan, there was such a palpable level of dominance and such fear. And is there some bias from somebody that's covered the NBA? Yeah. Sure, because I've seen it. I've seen guys absolutely, positively petrified of going against this man. Listen, this is one of the things, one of the divides that I think exists between LeBron and MJ. People look at LeBron and universally respect the hell out of him. But they feared Jordan. They feared being annihilated. They feared having their heart stripped out of their chest. Serena Williams is something special. But when we talk about the greatest and stuff like that, I just look at Michael Jordan as being on a different level.
Yeah, Jordan went, if you look at the statistical analysis, he's the best who ever lived by all the cutting edge stuff and his peak. If you look at his dominance in clutch moments, he's the best who ever lived. Every time you look at Jordan, everyone wants to do comparisons with other players. You get your feelings hurt. Jordan's the best who ever did it. It's clear. Now, if you're looking at second place, Serena has a case, but I don't think her case is strong enough yet. By the time she's done maybe, but not quite yet. So she's, for me, somewhere between 5 and 10.
Let me just say one thing, though. It's unprecedented to be doing what she's doing at this age in this sport. People usually would have retired already, and in terms of, we're talking athletic ability, and she had major health issues and still was able to come back. 20 plus years of dominance. I don't know, how long would you say that Michael Jordan was dominant for?
That's true. Oh, well, you could sit up there and say, even before he was winning championships, he had elevated himself to that dominant figure. Is it that the Detroit Pistons had a team?
But it's also apples to oranges. You have to say, in that sport, what is a dominant run? And Serena is in that now an era where players are playing to later and later ages, you know, like to older and older ages, and still maintaining world rankings high in the top 10. Whereas, you know, for example, in John McEnroe's era, that didn't happen. So it's also a function of the era in which she plays, although she's setting the standard for the era.
I will say this. I said Serena is top 5. You didn't say that. Who are the people other than Jordan you would put ahead of her in terms of most dominant?
Look, even in the before you leave the NBA, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar won 3 titles in college, won 6 in the NBA. Was like, if you take it to boxing, Sugar Ray Robinson was 131-1. The only loss was to LaMotta, an all-time great. Who gave up 13, 15 pounds to fight, and he beat LaMotta 5 other times before he lost his second fight. You can look in each sport and find someone at Serena's level, or maybe a touch above, because she's not done yet. So it's, you know, like when she is all done, she will be challenging for that number 2 spot.
She's certainly not done. She's going to be playing here at 1:30. We can't wait for that. I have a feeling Stephen A. might stick around and watch that match.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe.
He might be busy. When we come back here on First Take, what did Max and Stephen A. think about the Pats fans and their standing, the warm welcome for Josh Gordon? Plus, U.S. Open continues here. Roger Federer getting set. He'll be taking the court at noon Eastern today, right after us here on ESPN.